Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. On Monday, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 announced that the second phase of the gradual easing of the lockdown had been extended by 4 weeks, while schools will be reopening gradually. The ban on interstate travel was lifted as well. Well, many of us know that that ban wasn't really effective, but it's been lifted now so people can move around. So we look at matters arising regarding these things surrounding the COVID-19. I'd like to welcome, joining us from our studio in Abuja, Dr. Ado. Joining us via Skype, I do apologize, Dr. Ado Mohammed, who's Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Dr. Ado Mohammed. Now, do you think that this partial opening of schools is a good idea, sir?
If you ask me, the time is not right. We are just caught in trouble by asking that schools should reopen. We are in a hurry to start off the economy. That's understandable, but the consequences are grievous and they are grave. And if I were in position of authority, I won't attend this for now. We are not prepared. Look at what is happening in the US, in Italy, in Spain, where they have the facilities to compare. Comparative to what we have in Nigeria, where we are highly unprepared. I think it's a decision that is not properly timed, and it's not ideal, if you ask me. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but Doctor, it's only the graduating classes, Standard 6, SS3, those who have to sit school leaving exams. They are the only ones who are allowed to go back to school and sit their exams.
Yes, but you will agree with me that there are more private schools than public schools. How do you guarantee that the modicum level of preparedness is in place before doing that? There are schools in Ijedodo, Ijagemo, and all that where the facilities were not before now very optimum in terms of health and well-being. How do you guarantee the safety of these children and the teachers? I'm sorry, we seem to be caught in trouble. Why are we in a hurry? The whole world is affected by this pandemic. It's not a one nation or one tribe or one, so we should just be careful about what we are doing. And ASU, which I belong to, I said that clearly, that we seem to be caught in trouble. And I agree with them. And I also think so too.
Dr. Shokefu. Are you there, Dr. Shokefu?
I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Now, still talking about the reopening of schools to a certain extent, do you think that these schools will be ready to do all that they should to ensure that these children do not contract the virus?
I'm unsure. I'm sure they will not be able to meet the standards. I am very, very sure they will not be able to meet it. Government that has the wherewithal is currently lagging behind. If we are talking about deepening tests at this stage, when people are talking about finding vaccines, immunotherapies, and cures, Nigeria is still talking about deepening tests to go around. How can you be? It's sure that these schools will not be able to put in place the things that are necessary and needed for resumption.
Dr. Mohammed, let me bring this to you. The primary healthcare centers would always play a major role in any healthcare system around the world. Now, in this kind of situation where schools are reopening, yes, there's a graduating classes, interstate borders are opened up so that travel is happening across the state lines. What role can the primary healthcare centers play? Do they have the equipment to help to minimize community spread?
Thank you very much for inviting me. And let me also clarify that I'm no longer the executive director of National Primary Care Development Agency. I was, the executive director. Having said that, as we all know, primary care is the first contact between any community, individual, or person with the health system. And because of that, it plays a very important role in terms of managing cases at the community, particularly as we're at the stage of active community transmission of COVID-19 now. So how does primary care come in terms of COVID-19 management? First, primary care comes in through infection prevention and control. What do I mean by that? Looking at infection prevention, we've been talking about the need to ensure that we interrupt transmission of COVID-19. We contain the spread of the virus at the community level. Primary care, as the first contact between the health system and the community and individuals, have a very important role to play along that direction. First, in terms of case detection. Secondly, in terms of even managing cases at the community level, because it's not every case that will go into a hospital setting. Some mild cases will be managed at the community level in their homes and in their residences and houses. Now, how does primary care come into, what role would primary health care play in that direction? First, the health workers at the primary care level need to monitor those cases that are being managed at the community level. Some could be asymptomatic, some could be symptomatic, the mild cases. Now, for the asymptomatic cases, those that have not come down with symptoms, they will manage and see whether they will progress into becoming symptomatic cases. And for those that have symptoms, especially mild symptoms, they also look at them and then see if they will progress into becoming a case that will need hospital setup. That is, then at the community level, the community has a very important role to play in terms of preventing people from getting infected, because prevention is key here. We do not want a situation that we have huge cases of patients, of people that are infected, that will overwhelm our health system. So we must try as much as possible to ensure that people do not get infected. And the community and primary care has a very important role to play in that direction.
Dr. Mohammed, that what you're saying now, that even as the different states, different levels of society open up, the primary healthcare workers would have to play a major role, indeed. But the question would be, how equipped are they for that role you're saying they should play? Or how much of access would there be, for instance, in a rural area? If I'm working in a primary healthcare center and I notice some things, some individuals are showing signs of the coronavirus, how quickly can they access the secondary and tertiary health institutions where they can get proper treatment?
And that is why we should not look at primary care in isolation. The response to COVID-19 should be a national response. It shouldn't be segregated into federal, state, and local government response. The federal government provides overall leadership in terms of strategic response, in terms of setting policy, guidelines, and then doing research and development, including treatment. So that is what the federal should do. So the federal government will now set the standards. States and local governments will ensure the implementation and operationalization of those standards. Now, at the local government level, standards that have been set by the federal government will now be implemented in terms of contact tracing, in terms of case detection, in terms of management of community cases. So we also have to make sure that while having set the standards, having set the guidelines and then the policy, we also support the local government and PAC to implement. How will that support come? What from? Capacity building, training, and equipping, because we also have to make sure that we provide them with the needed kit in terms of personal protective equipment. Because if you are saying the primary health worker should be the, I don't want to use the front line, no, because front line is the community, so it should be the last defense, because we, as much as possible, the first defense should be to prevent it from happening. So the last defense should be managing that cases. And those at the PAC level should be the last defense in terms of managing cases. So we need to build that capacity, to train them. You need to provide them with the appropriate equipment. You also need to ensure that the PAC is functional. And what do I mean by functional? Functionality does not refer to just having a primary care center that is equipped. No, it goes beyond that. It includes human resources for health. It includes effective referral linkage. So a PAC worker should be able to, at any point in time, knows what his own limitations about. He should be able to determine if a case needs to be referred to the next level of care. So it's a total package. So I want to look at it in terms of national response. With federal government providing strategic leadership, policy, guideline, states and local governments now operationalizing, and then tactical. So it's a complete package. That no level of care, no level of government can do it alone. So the presidential task force is working very hard to ensure that we contain the virus, but they cannot do it alone. They need to be complemented by the state and local government, and PAC has a very important role to play. And you'll be surprised that it's not so, for me, the consolation is that we've done it before. We did it with Ebola. We did it with polio. We need to ensure that we support the PAC to provide that leadership at the community level. And the interface between the primary care centers and the community. Because one issue that is affecting COVID-19 response now in the country is the issue of trust. At the community level, you go around, people do not believe that COVID-19 is real. People go around without using masks. People go around without upholding public health measures that have been released by the National Center for Disease Control and the Ministry of Health. Why is that happening? I think we need to ask ourselves, why are people not abiding and complying with guidelines and advice being given? The issue, the bottom line is that there are trust issues. People no longer trust, information that comes out either at the state level or the local government level. So how do we bridge that gap? It's important that we should use social compact platforms at the community level, like religious leaders, like community leaders, like influencers, that people will believe, so that people will be able to uphold and comply with public health measures. We did it with, this is not the first time we're having this kind of trust issues. We had it with polio, because I remember in 2001, we had the polio vaccine controversy. People refused to accept polio vaccine. In 2011, 2012, I remember myself and Dr. Pate, the then Minister of State of Health, had to move around the country to convince people to accept polio vaccine. And we did not do it alone. We had to engage the community. We had to engage traditional leaders. We had to engage religious leaders. We also have to engage key influencers within every community. In every community in this country, you have key influencers, people whom people trust and believe in. So we can engage them to, convince people to uphold, and then uptake public health measures. So it's not possible that,
Okay, Dr. Ado. Thank you, Dr. Ado. Dr. Shokefun, the interstate borders have also been reopened, and the PTF did say that transporters should only carry 50% of their normal load. Now, the last time you were here, we spoke about transporters within Lagos State. Now, do you see these interstate operatives obeying that particular instruction? Or should I
the impression that we just made? At no point in time did they stop interstate travel. People were traveling and payments were being made at entry points for people to get in. Of course, there were seemingly semblances of restriction and all that, but it wasn't working. You just had to pay your way through. Anyway, let's leave that. Now, it's a complex balance between what the government wants, what is operational, and what obtains. If you're asking that they should take 3 for their safety, of course, there must also be this shortage in their earnings by taking 3. So they must be convinced beyond doubt that, it's in their own interest. But the other side of it is that how do they take care of the daily returns that they have to give to the owners of the vehicles, who seemingly don't understand this reason why they should take 50% and all that. It is in their interest, as it is, to comply fully, to make sure that we can get rid of this pandemic and then get it controlled and make sure that it doesn't spread and all that. But government must also do a lot to make sure that, what you lose in terms of length, you can gain in terms of breadth for them. That's also important. And that's the reason why I have emphasized that there must be palliatives. You cannot derive the people of their income for the reasons of the pandemic and then not also put in place some measures that will provide some level of succor for them. So we need to really strike a balance between these ends of the divide.
It would seem that transport fares would have to go up again. But I'll ask you this when we come back from this break. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Yeah, Dr. Shokefun, I was going to ask you, wouldn't the easiest way out for these transporters be just to double their fares?
I didn't get that.
Wouldn't the easiest way be to double fares if they have to carry 50% load to make 100% of what 100% like they used to? They would have to double fares, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they will have to double fares. Yes, that's certain. Especially with the increase in the price of fuel to 143 or thereabout in the last few days. I think prices will certainly have to go up. Well, I'm not sure that it has to be doubled, but it will have to go up to cater for the differential in the number of passengers they are carrying vis-a-vis the delivery that they have to make daily.
Isn't this putting too much pressure on the poor Nigerian?
Certainly, it is putting too much pressure on the average Nigerian. I must also say that in developed climes, the masks are available for citizens almost free of charge. As government put that in place also, this is also very, very important. The cloth type of mask that we have will only give about 50% protection. I hope we are aware of that. So the provision of masks for the ordinary citizen is also a sine qua non. It's important that citizens must have access to at least minimally the 3-ply type of mask that is used all over the world. I think that's also very, very important.
Yeah. Dr. Ado, let me bring you back into this conversation. As from Wednesday, the airlines will start operating again, also at 50% capacity. What are your thoughts about flying at a time such as this?
I think we just need to be very cautious because we all know that the virus does not move. People move with the virus. And one of the public health measures that is meant to contain the virus is to avoid closed space. And an aircraft is a closed space. So we need to, as much as possible, ensure that we put up the appropriate public health measure in terms of people, spacing people, in terms of ensuring that there is universal usage of masks, and then also ensuring that people uphold and comply with public health measures. Because the risk of not complying with public health measures, guidelines, and advice is better imagined. Others in the next few weeks we'll see, cases surging. Now, and we don't want that to happen. So we just have to be very careful. And I just hope that as airlines commence services, as people move we also need to enforce compliance with regard to universal masking. The previous speaker mentioned the issue of lockdown. I think, you see, we need to understand that even for those nations that have done very well with regard to management of COVID-19 response, it happened with very limited lockdown. I can give instances like South Korea, like Japan, like Singapore, like Taiwan. They've done very well with regard to COVID-19 response. And what they deploy really is universal mask usage, coupled with testing and then tracing and treatment, and then other public health measures. So if we can convince our people, to adopt and uphold and comply with advice that have been given by federal government of Nigeria through the Federal Ministry of Health and NCDC in terms of universal masking, in terms of upholding personal hygiene, in terms of avoiding large gathering, I think we'll get there. We'll be able to flatten the curve and then contain the virus. But we have to be very careful as we commence interstate movements, either through vehicle or through airline. We have to be extremely careful, and we also have to ensure that we have an appropriate monitoring mechanism to ensure compliance and enforcement of guidelines, because we cannot afford the consequences.
Thank you.
Better imagine on our health.
Thank you, Dr. Ado. Please, I just need to throw in this question because we've almost completely run out of time. Dr. Shokefu, quickly, what kind of foods do we need to be eating to raise our immunity level so that we are not easily susceptible to this infection?
Yeah, thank you very much. Plenty of fruits that contain vitamin C, that's important. Plenty of vegetables that contain zinc, because zinc has a way of limiting the replication of the virus. That's also very important. Exposure to sunlight, which can be walking somewhere close to your house for about 10-15 minutes per day, because vitamin D is also very, very important. And the exposure to the sun daily can also initiate the process in the human system. We also need to take adequate rest, and then principally we must also ensure that we wear masks that gives at least minimum protection. These are the things that are important for us for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lushola Shokefu, geneticist, Lagos State University, who joined us via telephone because he's unable to get to us in the studio. He is in traffic. And we also had Dr. Ado Muhammad, former Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, who joined us via Skype. Thank you very much, doctors, for coming to share your insights with us this morning.